Hello, everyone. I am Sarah Ferris. We're here with Congresswoman Suzan DelBene. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Absolutely.
A little busy today.
It's a little busy for everybody.
We're happy to be your warm-up act. So,
Thank you.
DelBene is in charge of the House Democrats' campaign arm, which needs just 4 seats, to net 4 seats to flip the House. A few weeks ago, your job was pretty unenviable. Democratic candidates were treading water with Joe Biden atop the ticket. Now, you and the D-Trip are seriously contending seats in Iowa, Wisconsin, and more. You know a few things about tough seats. You're a former frontliner. You actually lost your first seat to the House. Let's get into it. So, with our famously on-message Congresswoman, I want to warm you up with some sports.
I like sports.
You were a high school football referee.
I was.
Do you think that tonight's keynote speaker, Tim Walz, would have agreed with your calls if he was the coach of that team?
Well, I'm pretty sure as a coach, there's always frustration with calls from referees. So whether the call was right or not, there's always frustration. That's why being a referee was a great preparation for Congress. No matter what you do, someone's mad at you in the end. But I'm sure he's a great coach, and he respects good calls on the field, too.
And he is already coordinating with many of your Democratic candidates to actually stump at high school football games, to be on the campaign trail at his venue of choice. Talk to us a little bit more about how you're coordinating with the Harris-Walz campaign. There's a lot of overlap in these difficult battleground district states like Michigan, states like Wisconsin. These are states where you have seats that you're also contesting. So talk to us about the coordination.
Yeah, I think the map is really important, as you talked about, because our map is everywhere. We have races in California and New York, but also in Iowa and Nebraska and Alabama, so all across the country. But we have a lot of races. We have about 67 races on our map across the country. So you look at the Senate, it's a handful of races. The presidential is focused on swing states, but we're everywhere. And so we let folks, when folks are traveling, we understand and try to see if it might make sense for folks to meet with folks on the campaign trail. But really, our folks are running their own campaigns. They're unique voices for their districts. They're running campaigns on the ground, talking about the issues that matter. And that's really important to us, because this is about members representing these districts, and there is a close relationship there and a close focus.
Yeah. There's also 16 House seats where Biden won in 2020 that are currently held by House Republicans. So there's a different dynamic there where ticket-splitting voters who might have gone for a Republican congressman and Biden, the dynamic has changed there. So talk to us about ticket-splitting voters and how you'll be working to flip those seats there.
Well, we do have districts that President Biden won. We also have Democrats in seats that Trump won in 2020. We have 5 of our frontliners. Those are incumbents running for re-election in tough districts. 5 of our Democrats are in districts that Trump won in 2020, and they are doing an incredible job. We also have folks running to flip back these seats that you talked about, the Biden seats from 2020. And to do that, it's really about candidates who are going to speak to the issues of the district, who are independent-minded, and focus on getting things done. Probably the thread that I hear everywhere I go in the country is that people want to see governance work. They're tired of the extremism, the dysfunction, the chaos that they've seen this Congress from House Republicans especially. And so when you talk about having someone who's coming to DC to govern, that's very powerful, who's talking actually about issues and has their own points of view on what should be done versus waiting for Donald Trump to tell him what to do. That's a powerful message, and that's a big reason why we're going to win.
So let's talk more about your effort to flip seats in states like Iowa and Wisconsin. These are difficult seats. 2 years ago, we think back to when Sean Patrick Maloney was running the DCCC, there was some angst as Democrats were spending it in states that were difficult. I think back to North Carolina, Montana. There was concern about too big of a map. That of course, became clear when New York was really where the battlegrounds were. So talk to us about your confidence. What makes you so confident to spend in these districts that are much harder at a time when you're also defending a lot of seats?
Well, first of all, I'm a data person. I very much want to know the data, what's happening on the ground in all of our districts on our map across the country. We do have great candidates. I mean, you'll hear me say that over and over and over again, but having great candidates is what makes the difference in these districts. It's why Marie Gluesenkamp Perez won in Southwest Washington in a former Republican seat in a Trump district, because she's an authentic voice for that district. And so when we look across the country, we see incredible support for with Democrats on our issues. People support reproductive freedom. We've seen huge turnout in voters, Democratic turnout, since November of 2022 when abortion's on the ballot. So there's one big change. It's a presidential year. That has a very big difference in turnout. But the chaos and dysfunction we've seen from Republicans since day one of this Congress, everyone noticed. Speaker races, threats of shutdown. We even, all the way to July, when we left early because Republicans couldn't even agree with each other, that's had a big impact. So we have a candidate, our incumbents doing a great job, and the numbers are with us. Our folks are running ahead. They're ahead in fundraising, they're ahead with support, and we have incredible enthusiasm on the ground, folks turning out to knock on doors. Those are all the signs that folks are with us.
Let's talk a little bit more about Marie Gluesenkamp Perez. You were actually her only congressional endorsement in 2022 when she flipped this really surprising Washington 3rd seat, running against far-right Republican Joe Kent. Joe Kent is on the ballot again this year, one of many rematches that are playing out across the map. Talk to us about what makes her a strong incumbent, someone who can withstand these really strong wins of Donald Trump. It is a very Trumpy district there. And what should other frontliners be looking at about her strategy and how she may be able to win that seat again?
Well, you know, the reason I felt strongly that she had the opportunity to win is because I ran in a swing district and I was a frontliner. The most powerful thing you can do is listen. Listen to people that when you're knocking on doors, understand their issues. And when you really talk to people, you find out you agree on a lot more than you think you do. You know, knocking on a door is someone who might say, I'm a Republican, and when you talk about the issues they care about, you find there's a lot of common ground. That's what Marie was doing. She finds common ground. She's listening to people. That has impacted what she thinks needs to be done here in DC to help support families. And she is incredibly strong at making sure she gets her point of view across. She's talking about the issues that people are feeling, and she is a fighter for those people on those issues, and people know that. And that's what makes the difference, because in the end, a lot of people are voting for someone they trust to stand up for them. It's not always about the party, it's about the person. And she is that person. And I saw that early on, talking to folks in Washington and Southwest Washington. You saw the desire for someone who's going to speak up and really focus on their needs. And she's running against probably one of the most extreme candidates we have in the entire country. So in all of our races, the contrast couldn't be more clear. The stakes couldn't be higher. She's doing a great job, and we're going to continue to support her and making sure it's really clear to folks what's at stake this election, and remind folks of the great work she's doing and beat back all the lies and attacks that are going to come at her along the way.
Speaker Mike Johnson was in the Washington 3rd District this past week. He called it one of his top 5 races around the country. I'm going to use that as a chance to ask you a question that we like to ask DCCC chairwomen. Steve Shepard asked this of Sean Patrick Maloney last cycle. If you could pick one race that you could look ahead in a crystal ball and know the results of today, whether to kind of give us a sense of where where the election is headed, what would be that seat? And I'll say that Sean Patrick Maloney did not pick his own race, although perhaps he should have. And I would love to hear your answer on this.
Well, actually, you know, I struggle to have one, and I'll say, first of all, the reason I do is it has been an incredibly volatile time. You know, I am confident, but I'm going to be paranoid all along the way because, you know, we still have 2 months ahead of us of work to do to make sure we get our message out, we get out the vote. And things can change along the way, and we've got to make sure we're ready to fight those battles, whether it's mis and disinformation out there. We need to be there every step of the way. So we are in a strong position. We have great candidates, but I think what you're going to see as we start to see, as we are seeing even more now, the enthusiasm, the turnout, that's going to make the difference. And we're going to see turnout in places like Iowa and Nebraska or Alabama. And I do think that those states are going to be really indicative. We're going to have high turnout in other states, but the turnout is going to be critically important. And I do think that when people turn out, they know our message, we win. So we have a lot of races. So I'd be hesitant to pick any one, but I can tell you we have opportunities across the map, and folks are running ahead across the board. So we have incredible opportunities, and our job is to make sure we just continue to expand that margin.
I'm particularly interested in Iowa, talking to Democrats after they saw the spending that was going into some of those seats this week that you all announced on Monday. Democrats have told me Iowa can be a money pit for our party. There's not a statewide Democrat there. There hasn't been in a couple of years. Talk to us about the opportunities that you see to unseat Zach Nunn, Miller Meek. Some of these, I imagine those are the members that you guys are looking at. So what makes them uniquely vulnerable this year?
I was out in Iowa not that long ago, and one of the first things folks were talking about is the attacks on reproductive freedom in Iowa, and folks were speaking up loudly. And when we've seen that reproductive freedom is on the ballot, we have seen folks turn out in Ohio and Kansas and Wisconsin and Virginia. Alabama, after the IVF decision by the Supreme Court, we flipped a state legislative seat. That was almost a 30-point swing. So that's one reason. People are energized, are very, very frustrated and angry about what's happened in their state. We had a huge crowd coming to our event a couple months ago because people are ready to engage, and those seats have been close seats. So we have great candidates in Lenon Bacam running against Zach Nunn, and we have great candidate in Christina Bohannon running against Miller Meeks. They're doing a great job. So it's the candidates, it's folks seeing that what Republicans really stand for: the extremism, the chaos, the attacks on our rights, our freedoms, our democracy, and our future.
Every time the D-Trip or another Democratic group spends in some of these more reach seats, that of course means decisions about other seats, such as Biden, seats that President Biden won by double digits last time that were at risk earlier this year. Now folks are feeling a lot more confident about. Do you see the need for Democrats to make sure you're still spending significant resources to protect seats like Hillary Schulten, like Angie Craig, like Jahana Hayes? These are not seats that folks are as worried about now, but how do you see the need to spend significantly there?
We're working hard with all of our candidates, and we are making sure that we are supporting them on the ground with investments to make sure they're running strong campaigns. And part of my job is to make sure that we're making smart investments. We're investing where we need to make a difference, and we are making sure that we're getting to as many races as possible, because I've got, as you said, I've got my 4 more in 24 badge on here, but we'll take 5 or 10, or more. We want a strong governing majority, and so we want to make sure we use the resources that we have wisely to win as many seats as we can across the country.
And I want to pivot in our last couple of minutes to policy. You were, of course, the former chair of the New Democrats, the giant centrist organization in the House. We are House people. There's a lot of folks maybe in the audience who don't quite understand that exactly how many seats, if you're able to win the House, the number of seats is going to determine how big the agenda can be. Talk to us about what those couple of additional seats would mean in terms of expanding the child tax credit, your favorite policy, or taking on, of course, the tax agenda is going to be huge coming in January. What are some of the bigger goals that you think Democrats would be able to do if you're able to pick up large numbers of seats in admittedly pretty small map this year?
The opportunity is more seats on committees, more ability to make sure we pass legislation. Sometimes these days we're counting, even if someone's sick and can't come, that can impact the turnout of the vote. So making sure that we have a strong majority means that we have more people on committees, we have more people on the floor out voting, and we also continue to hear differing points of view. And We're going to work hard, like we have before, to bring together large coalitions around important policies that can be bipartisan, because we also know, another policy I'm strongly supportive of is strengthening the low-income housing tax credit. Very, very bipartisan policy. We're actually okay with moving bipartisan policy. Republicans don't seem interested in moving bipartisan policy. We're willing to build these coalitions to move forward. So it helps for us to have the majority, but also to have leadership like our future speaker, Hakeem Jeffries, who are going to help bring folks together, move policy, because to make a difference, we got to get policy to the House, through the Senate, and to President Harris's desk.
All right. Well, thank everyone so much for your time. Thank you for taking
Thank
the
you.
time.
Thanks, everybody.